Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome Empowered Women's Circle and other ladies who might be listening. I am here with Nadine. I'm not even going to try the middle last name, McGill. Nadine, you want to say your full name for us?
It's Nadine Hatzitolios McGill.
Nadine Hatzitolios McGill. Fabulous. Okay, so I can say it. I don't know if
Yeah,
I'll be
you
able
can.
to twice. And Nadine is one of the self-love authors who is in this wonderful, amazing group of women. And we need to make sure that if you don't have this book, you absolutely go get it. So Nadine's chapter is called Hats Off to Self-Love, and it is absolutely an incredible read. I take notes when I read these chapters, and I was just scribbling furiously. And part of it was for the interview today, and part of it was for my own life because I found so many really, really valuable pieces. So to introduce Nadine a little more formally, she's an international best-selling author and self-esteem shifter, which I love that word, self-esteem shifter, public speaker, entrepreneur, former 30-year employee of multiple specialties, so medical, educational, human services. And Nadine notices that regardless of the roles women satisfactorily fill, they often are secretly struggling with self-esteem, and sometimes not so secretly, right? It's so true. We're basically filling all of these roles and doing so competently, but often on the inside a little bit shaken. And I'm really, really excited to hear what you have to say about how we can shift that. And she helps women to live confident, guilt-free, impactful lives, and calls it bolstering the alpha unleashed. So I love that. I didn't see that in the chapter, so I'm interested what alpha unleashed is. So having transformed herself, Nadine wholeheartedly supports women to reach and maintain that level of self-esteem through inspirational speaking engagements, seminars, workshops, events, all brought to you by her company called Hats Off Group. And we'll make sure that you get her website at the end, but just right now it's called hatsoff.ca, HATZ or Z, OFF.ca, HATZOFF.ca. And so we'll make sure you can get a hold of Nadine. Nadine, I am just so grateful that you would come and spend a little time with us this morning to talk to us about self-esteem, which is near and dear to my heart, and the empowered women will so benefit from what you have to say.
Thank you. I'm very, very glad to be here. It took a little bit of for us to connect, but it worked. So the universe is on our side.
Absolutely. And as I'm trying to share, as hard as it may seem for us to believe, the universe is almost always on our side. We just don't necessarily understand it all as we're going through it. So I love the whole shift self-esteem. So there's so many people who say we're going to fix this or adjust that or, embed this new thought process or whatever. And for you, it's shifting. So I'd love to hear where you came up with that term. What does that mean to you?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, thank you for noticing that. You're actually the first person to actually key in on that word. And I have been struggling about rebranding and marketing, and that was one of the words that was taken out. I haven't completed my rebranding yet, so I'm glad that you keyed in on it. Shifting, partly because of the way it sounds when you put it together. Self-esteem shifter, and I like to use wording and phrases that stick because of the letters that go together or the alliteration. So part of it came from that. I love to write. I write poetry. And so that's very much a part of me. And it just comes to me. I don't even think about it. It just downloads to my brain. The other part is when we use the word change, we think there's something wrong with us. We think that we've done something bad or we haven't done it as best as it could be. And so I don't like the word change for that reason. And shifting sounds more like a transformation that occurs because it's meant to occur. And you just move into it and slide into it. So that's, yeah.
No, it does. It really, the word just really hit me. And I think for those reasons, and also for me, because, and similarly, it presents a journey.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of presents more like a work in progress, a work that's almost never finished,
Yes.
which
Yes.
you get to in your book. And I want to sort of talk for a few moments. I know not all of our empowered women have children, but I really loved the parts that you were talking about with respect to children, with your own childhood. And now I understand you have children as well, which we're happy to hear about. Having our own children, you say, helps us realize how much our parents did for us. And I also find that having my own children also helps me realize some of the responses that my parents had toward me that I didn't necessarily understand at the time, because I'm triggered sometimes into those same responses. And they maybe have been very good for my development, or maybe had created certain meanings or misidentities, which we'll talk about. But I find it really interesting that having children is like an education all its own. And I'm often saying to my kids, you won't really understand until you have your own children. So tell me more about how your childhood has shaped your parenting and sort of that story.
Sure. You know, I was extremely influenced by my mother.
Me too.
And I talk about her in the chapter. And one of the things I say is, I'm going to sort of work backwards. One of the things I say is she has Parkinson's and dementia now. And one of the things in my chapter is about not waiting till that moment where you don't have any limitations, but it's caused by a disease. So dementia does that to us, right? There's no boundaries then. There's no filter. That's the word I want. Filter,
Right.
not limitations.
Right.
So she says whatever she wants to say right now. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good, but we know it's from the disease process, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm giggling because finally she is allowed to be who she is, right? She's allowed to express herself. And unfortunately, it's late in life and when dementia has taken away those filters.
Right.
So I'm not saying that you have to be offensive or, rude or anything like that. All I'm saying is she was extremely private and did not express feeling at all. The only feeling I saw from her was anger and disappointment. And so I have to go into this a little more deeply as well. I decided that I was going to help her be happy. In my child brain, it's not even a conscious decision, right? You're a child.
Right.
It became my job, I decided, to help her have a happy life. And as much as I tried, it never worked. And so when I was bringing up my children, part of this was now conscious for me. And so I tried a little bit differently to raise them so that they didn't become responsible for me. And what I want to go deeply into is I have a hypnotherapist. I also worked with her. And just last week, we did a hypnotherapy session because I said, I'm blocked in my business. I'm not going anywhere. I don't know what's stopping me. Can we do a session on taking a leap? I need to take a leap. I don't know what's stopping me. And so there's a difference between hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And she did a hypnosis session. And I came out of it when it was time. And she looked at me and she said, "You're not done yet, are you?" I said, "No." And she said, "Do you want to go deeper into the hypnotherapy?" I said, "Yes." And in an instant, I was in because I love it.
Wow.
But what happened was I discovered that I made that decision to help my mom be happy when I was 4. And I don't have memories before 6 or 7. So that memory came out through hypnosis. And it's too bad it comes this late in life, right? Because my kids are now young adults. So I look back now and I go, what else did I do that I probably wouldn't have done if I had been cognizant of that fact? Yeah. So that was a big influence on me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That we're always learning different resources that we can use, of course, as women and as our circle expands. And so that's hypnosis and hypnotherapy, very valuable resources, and we do have some of that sort of within our circle. And of course, we'll reach out if you have any that you can help us with. And I find, just as you're sharing that, I'm thinking of something. I'm trying to remember who I had this conversation with, but one of the self-love authors, it might have actually been Corby, and she was saying that what the identity we take on, the expectations that we take on from around us, although we can tap into them and think of them as dysfunctional, or think about ways we can shift them or just tweak them or make them more positive or efficient or effective in our lives, they also serve a purpose at the time. And so they were functional at the time. And so we're taking this, the way we adopted a certain identity or a certain mistaken belief about ourselves at, for example, the age of 4, or I'm watching my 12-year-old twin girls, for example, and take what we've embodied as that sort of mistaken identity, and we can make it conscious and then understand how it impacted us so that we can then use it. So not throw it away or say it didn't matter, but then just actually use it moving forward to help ourselves grow and to help ourselves step into greater consciousness and fulfillment and self-actualization. Mm-hmm. So I like that sort of shift in verbiage, that it's not so much, this horrible thing that's happened. It's kind of something that helped us survive and was functional at the time. And now we've made it conscious. We've uncovered it. We've shifted it, and we're now using it to our advantage, or for our business, or for helping other women who have been through the same thing, step into a new way of being in their lives. And that's what I love about your story. And it's so obvious in Empowered Women's Circle. We talk about this underlying story, this old story, new story, the mistaken identity, how kids, if they don't fit in, it creates a certain identity for them. But us as parents as well, if we see our kids not fitting in, we often go to fear. And maybe that's triggered by our own sort of childhood thoughts. Or if we see our kids really, really sad, I know I go to, well, maybe I'm not enough. Like, what is it about my parenting that's making it so difficult for them, for example, or, different underlying identities. And we've dug into some of those in the Empowered Women's Circle. And I'm curious if you could go back and tell us, how did you come to the realization that basically low self-esteem is the root of your work, and that low self-esteem kind of branches into everything? So how did you come to the realization that it was low self-esteem that you wanted to laser focus in on for yourself and for your clients? Tell us about how that became the core.
Okay, well, first of all, when you and I were talking before the show, I mentioned that I married a Mountie, and we moved around the country. So I had several jobs, different kinds of jobs, in the medical field, in the education field, in victim services, and all helping women, right? Predominantly women in that circle.
Yay.
And yeah, after a period of time, probably a decade at least, if not more, realized there was this pattern with women that they were confident on the outside, but when you spoke to them and really heard some of the phrases that were coming out of their mouths or watched the behavior, there was something underlying that was saying, I'm just not good enough, or I'm not important enough. I'm not valued. I don't value myself enough to take the step that I need to take, or leave a relationship or a job that I need to leave. And that became very evident for me after I moved around the country and was in these jobs and was just watching the people that I was working with. And to the point where I remember I was working in a school system one time, and there was a lot of, it was an elementary school, so a happy place, right, with kids. But I worked with special needs. So there was a group of assistants that were asked to do some medication administration. And there's all kinds of policies around that. And unfortunately, because it hadn't been addressed before, this was the first time a child had to have this medication, we were going through this whole process of learning how that was going to happen, and did we have the right people in place, and it became a little bit anxiety causing, and some things came out that made me realize, again, these women are fearful of doing this. They don't have a medical background. Now they have to give medication, and they're not speaking up for themselves and saying, you know what, I'm not comfortable doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not my field.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're asking me to do this 3 times a day. And that was, I just went, whoa, wait a minute here. Yeah. We are educational assistants. We are not medical. And so let's step back and take a moment and figure out how this is going to happen so that it's a win-win-win situation for everyone. That's just one specific example that happened. And so I watched the women not speak up for themselves. And to me, that's saying, okay, well, whatever's happening around me is what I need to focus on. And it doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter how anxious I am or uncertain about what I'm about to do, even though I could be placed in a libelous position.
Yeah. And I find that we will often, we'll often say it's so important to speak up for yourself. And then there's women who haven't kind of delved into this sense of self-esteem and confidence and grounding, and they'll speak up for themselves maybe from a place of fear or a place of anger or a place that is really not connected to why they're reacting the way they're reacting. And sometimes there's that over speaking up for ourselves also based in this lack of self-esteem. And so there can be people, like you say, who just don't have the confidence to say what they need to say. And then there's people that maybe say more than they should be saying, but all of it is because of this scattered sense of identity and this real lack of grounding in, as you go on to describe in your chapter, core values. Mm-hmm. So what is it that is most important to me, and how can I stop worrying about what others think and what others expect and really live true to who I am and what I believe? Mm-hmm. And you talk about this in the employment environment, and it really resonated with me. The beliefs and values not in congruence with those of the workplace. So you ended up in that situation, and it sounds like you saw that situation in many places around the country as well. You trying to be fit into something that just doesn't fit. And I've shared my experiences with that in the U.S. healthcare system, within the Empowered Women Circle many times, and living into values, passions, and natural tendencies. And these are your words, Nadine. But your surroundings are misaligned. So as you start to step into this authentic, true self, you're more in touch with what it is that is of value and priority for you. But that might not necessarily be the situations you're in. And how do you deal with that? How do you help women deal with that?
Well, first of all, that became a question that I was asking myself as well. So I'm seeing all of this, but I'm also putting myself there every time.
Right.
And so I had to ask myself, why do you keep going back to that? Why do you keep going into those places where you know exactly what's going to happen? You know you're going to see the same thing over and over again. And that's where I really realized that it was my self-esteem I was working on, not just seeing other women's, right? So when people talk about doing something for 10 years and that makes you an expert, your life makes you an expert.
And this is your sentence too. Every experience slowly scaffolded my journey to self-love. You're right. Every life experience. It's not all the degrees, although they are important. Yes. It's not all the life skills, although they are important. It's the whole thing that equips you for your life.
Mm-hmm. So basically, when I do seminars, I use a lot of my own experience. I talk about myself like the hypnotherapy session. So I'm not afraid to wear my heart on my sleeve. It's out there because we don't just go through those experiences for ourselves. We're all in this together. So until we share, we don't make that shift. And that's one of the things that I do. I just tell people what my story is and what's happened in my life and give them those specific examples that I finally realized fit into place so that I could make the shift, right? Because I kept thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I going there? Why am I getting a job? I know I shouldn't be applying for this, but I am. Right? And so finally, it wasn't until I wrote the chapter that it all actually came together.
That's so amazing. So we had an experience of this last live event, our Empowered Women's Circle live event, and we started our introductions, and we had new people in the room and some veterans in the room, people who'd been there before in the room, and all women who were sort of at various stages of connecting, some brand new. And our introductions took almost an hour. And I just sort of sat back and watched the blossoming of the connections, that deepening of women understanding that they're not alone in this life. And that, as you just so eloquently described, we're all doing this together. And if we can share these life experiences, the ups and the downs, we can hopefully save each other not having to do the big downs and maybe being able to reach the big ups, because we are sharing so much of what we're learning in our individual lives for the collective good.
Yes.
And I want to come back to do you have a comment about that?
No, I was just thinking how much that word shifting is fitting in.
Yes. Yeah. So much.
Yes. Only because, people think I have to get to this place that's up here. And there is no place up there, right? It's hills and valleys. That's life.
Yeah.
And that's part of shifting your mindset, is understanding there's no top of the mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you are free, because you're not spending your energy trying to get to this place that doesn't exist. That perfection, right? The same thing. Everybody who is a perfectionist, it's the same hyper vigilant journey to perfectionism, and all you're doing is causing yourself angst.
Right.
So,
and when you say free, I think that should be part of your branding too, because shifting this creates freedom, and that's what we're seeking, is that level of expansion and freedom in our lives. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And when I'm saying shift in this, like trying to reach this unreachable place, I'm thinking about a standard shift in a car too. And I don't know if people even know really what that is anymore, or if people even drive those anymore, but you kind of go up and down in your gears as you need to just, get where you are intending to go. And I think that's sort of a neat analogy. One of the tough things that I think women experience is, as you did, why am I applying for this job? Why am I continuing to go into work? Why am I continuing to come home in tears every day? And I think one of the big whys that you mentioned sort of at the end of the chapter is money. And there's other whys. There's the I'm not enough, and there's this need for perfection, or this need for accomplishment, recognition, wealth, prosperity. Those things are, really good because we need them, but also probably not so good because we aspire to do things that aren't aligned with our core values in order to achieve them. And so I'd like to just hone in a little bit on that money piece, because probably for you and many other women, that's why they're applying or they're sticking out in a situation that just does not feel right for them.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I'm still there. I'm still part-time in a job I don't want to be in.
Yep.
And working on building this business.
Yeah.
And have to let go of the anxiety around that, because as long as I focus on having to pay the bills or having to get up and go to that job, nothing else is going to happen. So again, a different kind of shift. I shift my mindset to, this is helping me get to where I want to be. Even though I don't want to go to work today, because I'm going to go to work after this interview. Yeah. Even though I don't want to go to work today, it's helping me put things into place that I really want to do.
Yeah.
And so being very mindful of my breathing, because I tend to breathe really shallowly, and that came from the hypervigilance I learned growing up. And so being very aware, I did my little meditation this morning with Dr. Deepak Chopra, because he's all about the breathing.
Yeah.
And so, just starting my day breathing the way I want to breathe. And then I'm reminding myself as I walk into that place that, you know what, this is just temporary. And there's always things to learn. Like I'm always challenging myself at work, not just with the work, because that's easy now. The work is easy. It's who I am at work. I'm constantly challenging myself.
You got it. You got it. There, I mean, there it is. And so I think we in Empowered Women's Circle, we talk about being in Power Center, which is related to feminine power work that Claire Zammit, PhD, has founded and works in. And I'm bringing a lot of Claire's work into the Empowered Women's Circle. And so what we call it is grounding into Power Center. And if you're in Power Center, in other words, you're tapping into your most competent, confident, resourced adult self, and you realize that there's a fiscal responsibility, then part of that may be a part-time job or, a home business, a network marketing company that you do from home, or part of it may be, tapping into some other form of finances. And those are just smart, powerful decisions that we as adult women have to make. And the other piece, which I love that you came around to, is that it's who we're being in the world. So sometimes there's work that doesn't necessarily align, but we can go there and we can touch people's lives just by virtue of that level of connection that we're bringing to every interaction and every relationship. And that can be in any job that we do. And so we can bring, it's not like a layering of positivity on top of everything. It's like really living from inside out in those interactions and those relationships. And I have no doubt that that impacts people profoundly when we bring that part of ourselves to anything that we do.
Yes. And you know what? What happens to your self-esteem when you connect with somebody? We don't even think about it. It's so subconscious, but those are the moments that I try and help women recognize, right? So you go to work and you're not happy because you have to go to that place, but you connect with somebody there that you really like, or you guys work together well, or it's a client that's in your building and you just have this rapport. And it's that moment, it's that present moment where we're really alive and who we are meant to be. And that's where self-esteem blossoms from. Because we are then of value, not only to ourselves, but to the world and to others.
Yeah.
So self-esteem is not a one-man job.
Right. To ourselves, to others, and to the world. I mean, that really is what it's all about. Yeah. And so you mentioned it's a daily, deliberate, I think the word you used was diligent. How do you nurture your own self-esteem amongst all of the reality and transparency and authenticity of your life? And I appreciate your honesty with us about all of that, because it really helps us to feel connected to you and to feel less alone in our own struggles and journey. But how do you tap into that every day?
I don't. I don't tap into it every day.
Wow, you're so honest. It's refreshing.
Well, no, I don't. So one of the things that I do for myself is I love dance. And people have said to me, well, maybe you need to give up some dance so that you can build your business and spend the time on that. But that is my zone. That is my alpha unleashed, which we haven't talked about. But for me, it's finding that passion, that place where I don't have to worry about anything else. I'm just that free spirit. So that's one thing. The other thing is, it all comes down to physical activity for me. I power walk. So I listen to the people that I want to listen to, like Caroline Myss and Dr. Joe Dispenza and Dr. Deepak. I listen to them when I'm walking. So I'm physically working out whatever it is I need to get rid of out of my body. And I'm listening to the messages that I want to retrain my brain with.
Yeah. And you're bringing it into every cell of your body.
Every cell.
By the movement and the somatic connection. That is so amazing. So tell us about Alpha Unleashed, because I didn't see that, I don't think, in the book.
No, that's not in the chapter. That was born after that. I don't know how much time we have, but a little story to back this up. I have been public speaking since I was 10, so over 40 years. but I'm extremely nervous every time I do and have to have my notes. And I don't have any notes today, by the way.
Good.
Have to have my notes, have to have my cue cards, my PowerPoint. Get extremely nervous and my mouth goes dry, my heart's pounding in my ears, and my mind totally blanks. I don't remember anything, and it's all this fear that I'm not going to be able to get up on stage and tell my message how I want to tell it, or whatever it is that I'm public speaking about, right?
Right.
And so one day I was going through the, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Landmark Forum.
Oh, I have heard of that, yes.
It's a personal transformation. It's not just one seminar either. There's many. So I was in the third of these seminars that I was going to, and got up to speak because we share. And I got up to speak just impromptu, nonchalantly. And what I wanted to say flowed out of me so naturally and lovingly that my being sort of emanated through the room. This is what it was like. This whole ball of energy in the room, and I could feel everyone and they could feel me, and it wasn't just my words that I was getting out there. And I realized that I was no longer in our conscious beta waves. I was in the alpha waves, which is and the alpha waves are the creative daydream state, the meditation, light meditation state. And I realized I was operating from there, and that's where I can operate truly from, and I don't have to be fearful anymore. And I got off the stage, and my coach said to me, because we have all personal coaches in that seminar, she said, "Who were you up there? I didn't even recognize you." And I was telling her I was just in these different brainwaves, and she said, "Well, you're like unleashed."
Wow.
I said, "I think I have to use that." So I'm actually recording a 20 series podcast right now called Alpha Unleashed.
Alpha Unleashed. And in the Empowered Women's Circle, we have people of many different backgrounds and beliefs. And I would suggest that some of us would propose that is really a deep spiritual connection, that is actually, what we might call your zone of genius, that you're really tapped into your power center. I mean, all these words, they help bring it home to each of us, and to be really tapped into your reason for living, the reason that you're here, the reason you were created, and for you to actually allow that to flow very organically up and through you is not only, it's a real feeling of I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm doing what I came to this earth to do. And even as I say it, I can imagine you up on the stage unleashing your alpha and just allowing the real Nadine to come up and through you and to impact and influence and connect so deeply with the women and the people that you are put on this earth to serve and to help and to support, and in such a loving way. So I hope that we can be involved in your podcast, because I think it would be, us, as today as well, seeing you doing what it is you came to this world to do is so profound.
Yes. It is very profound. And, that's another thing that I try to impart to women as well, is we're always striving to get the letters behind our name, or, the job at the top of that ladder in the corporate world, or be better than who we are. And it's not something you have to do. It's just something you have to be. And it's when you allow yourself when you give yourself permission to be who you are, you're doing the job that you came on this earth to do. It's effortless.
Exactly. It's effortless. It doesn't mean there isn't work around kind of building the business and putting the podcast together, but the work itself is just being.
Yes.
Just being you. And not that, we aspire to be better than who we are. What we really need to aspire to be, just to finish your sentence, is we need to aspire to be ourselves.
Right.
And in the work of working with women, I will add to that, there is no competition. in being ourselves. We all have such unique, precious, special gifts to bring to the world, and to be in a place of abundance and love and sharing and connection, and make sure we stay out of lack and fear that, you know, there's not enough for me. If she does that, then I can't do that. But really, if we're just bringing ourselves, we're all sharing something uniquely different and beautiful and necessary in the world. I mean, that's why we're here, is to share those things. Mm-hmm. I'm really impacted by having had this conversation. I love this. And I'm going to start to wrap up just in some of your words, and then I'll give you an opportunity to tell us how we can further connect with you. You said that our ultimate goal is to operate on a plane of gratitude, surrender, humility, and presence. To operate on a plane of gratitude, surrender, humility, and presence. And there's so much in that sentence. It's just beautiful.
Thank you. I would just like to say one more thing. Please. Because you alluded to it. And when you said we connect together, what I'm finding too is, because I'm spending more time in groups with women, even if it's on Zoom, right? And you're hearing this later or watching this later, we have a connection. And when we support each other, we also shift out of victimization. Yeah. And that's been a big thing that I've seen is women tend to stay in the victim role, partly because we're taught that. And it gets to a point where being that victim doesn't serve you anymore. And that's where the shift starts to happen.
And we, to elaborate a little on that, we do often talk about reaching out and helping others, especially, you know, women who so desperately need it. I mean, there's girls and women all over the world who need to be supported and lifted up and given a voice if they don't otherwise have one. We have one of our Empowered Women Circle leaders has an enterprise in Honduras and works diligently with Days for Girls, which is feminine hygiene kits, as well as an orphanage there, and most importantly, a nursing school that they're building to bring young girls, impoverished women, into an education system that they can then go out in their community and provide healthcare. And the enterprise is just phenomenal. So we are learning, as we step into our own sense of self-confidence, that part of that, as you say, reaching out and helping others, continues to fill us up in a way that there is really no other, there is no other way to fill that part of ourselves.
No, you're right. You can't do it alone.
And for those who don't have this book, you have to go get it, because I'm going to leave a little bit of a suspense piece. You wrote at the end about a 4 or 5, let's say 1.5 page story about a butterfly. And I've read it twice now this morning, because I just sink into this beautiful, beautiful story. And I would love, I'm not going to take the time to read it now, or actually would love to have it in your words, but I would like to leave that as a thing that we can come back together to do for our Empowered Women Circle especially, and hopefully we can be in touch with you again. And for those who don't have the book, can go get it and read that story and share that amazing experience of your words. It's just so beautiful. So I'm hoping that we can kind of leave it there, find out from you how we can get in touch with you, and then we can reconnect, and especially we can hear this story in your own words at some point a little bit later when we have more time and when we've given women a chance to get the book as well. So how can we get a hold of you, Nadine?
Okay, my website is www.hatsoff.ca, so it's HATZOFF, as in Frank.ca. I'm also on Facebook. You just have to put in, well, it's not have to, because Hatzitolios is long to put in. If you go on Facebook and search me, Nadine Hatzitolios McGill, you will find me there. And same with LinkedIn. I am, like I said, going through some transitioning. So, you know, my website's a bit of a mess, but that's part of the fun of building a business and doing all of that and figuring out, how do I display me on that website? So
Yes.
I'm there. It's just a bit of a mess, but that's how you can get a hold of me. Or, you know what, through Stacy Cooper Latimer, who set this all up, who's one of our authors. And thank you so much to both of you for doing that. I have thoroughly enjoyed this time, and I would love to come back.
Yay. And you can connect with us. We have a closed Facebook group, but you're welcome into it. It's Empowered Women's Circle closed group or whatever. And if you request to join, we'll bring you in, and then you can share, you know, your upcoming workshops and events and things that are happening that would be of, you know, service and value to all of the women, the resources that you can provide. You know, you really align with a lot of what we're doing, and such beautiful way that you're doing it. So we appreciate you so much. Thank you, Nadine. I really, really appreciate this. We'll be in touch with you again soon.
Yes. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.